good evening. My name is Jay Williams, and I do have the distinct privilege and honor to serve as the president of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. We are thrilled that you have joined us this evening. We don't take for granted that you all have families and obligations and activities and careers and busy schedules, and you have decided to spend a bit of time with us here this evening, for which we are eternally grateful and find it very valuable. I am thrilled that we are at the tail end of a series of community discussions that we have committed to, about 14 months ago, that we wanted to engage in a conversation with each and every one of the 29 communities that the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving serves. And this is our 19th tour stop. South Windsor and East Windsor, you are our 27th and 28th towns. You know, someone said we often save the best for last. Don't tell that to the other towns, but this is where we are today. And it's really exciting because we have found it to be an invaluable experience, and I'll talk about that in just a few minutes. Before we get started, just a few logistics. Want to thank the South Windsor Public Library, beautiful facility here, for hosting us, and Mary Etter, the library director. So thank you all for your hospitality. I see that there is still some catering left from Manili's, so please enjoy that. We always are eager to try to engage a caterer from the town or from the region to just express a bit of our gratitude for the fact that, you know, you're probably either maybe you've eaten an early dinner, or you've got dinner waiting, or you've got people at home hungry wondering when dinner's going to be prepared. It's something I know firsthand with an 8-year-old son, and my wife would say she's got an 8-year-old kid and a 47-year-old kid that she has to keep fed. So please enjoy that. Tom and Stephanie, who have been phenomenal members of the team for the videography and for the audio recording, so want to thank them. Our photographer from Defining Studios, thank you for joining us and helping to capture all of our participants, and Costanda Segovia from Veo Veo, who has done a phenomenal job in each and every one of these. You know, I just continually to be amazed at the talent that she has and her ability to capture the feeling and the energy live. I mean, so this isn't like she has time to sort of replay it and go, as you all are speaking, as you're sharing your thoughts and aspirations about the town and the event, she's able to capture that in a way that just continues to amaze me. So, Costanza, thank you very much for doing that. So tonight, we are hopeful and excited to hear from you. As I said a few minutes ago, this is the culmination of a series of engagements that we've had with our communities to really hear from you, for you to hopefully share with us thoughts, feelings, aspirations about the town that you live in, about how we as a community foundation can be a more valuable partner, how we can be more impactful, how we can utilize the resources that we have, the financial resources we've been entrusted with by donors, a number of whom are here with us this evening, the research and evaluation capacity that we can use to help share and build and disseminate knowledge, the convening platform that we have to bring people together and stakeholders and leading experts together around issues of concern and interest to our communities. We've been around for 94 years, and we appreciate the relationship and the work, but we also know that we still have a lot to learn. And there's no better way to understand how to be a more valuable partner than to hear directly from our stakeholders. You know, I appreciate the offices that we have and the facilities that we have, but it's important that we don't become isolated in sort of that ivory tower and say, oh, you know, we think we're doing good work, and people tell us we're doing okay. The most important aspect of that is making sure we're out of our offices into the communities that we serve, being proximate to the issues, proximate to the challenges, and proximate to the opportunities, and talking to our partners who know best about what's going on in their community. So that's why we're here, and I'll talk about the format again in just a few minutes, but before that, want to just open up with a very brief video that provides some additional context and will then lead us directly into our conversation.
So, you want to leave a legacy?
Why not send me to college?
Help me be a better provider.
Or help support local programs.
At the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, through your generosity, we make both big and small dreams come true. This isn't just a donation, this is an investment. Through our careful financial stewardship, your money will last forever, helping numerous nonprofit organizations in the 29-town Greater Hartford area, changing countless lives along the way. It's a tradition that goes back to 1925. The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving is one of the oldest and largest community foundations in the country. We help donors impact the issues they care about, such as education, health, the arts, economic and community development, early childhood, and more. This is your community, and it's our community too. More than 90 years of experience means we understand the big picture, how different issues connect, and what will be needed in the future. The Hartford Foundation is invested in the vibrancy of every town in Greater Hartford. We award grants, share knowledge and data, influence public policy, host events, and build partnerships. But most importantly, we help people like you make a difference. Whether you want to establish a scholarship, join a giving circle, or start your own donor-advised fund, we are here to help. We'll make sure you reach your philanthropic goals, whatever they may be. The gift you give today will make an impact now and for years to come. It's about making Greater Hartford a better place, and you can make a difference. We promise.
So, what will your legacy be?
The Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, together for good. So we are a community foundation, as I indicated, that serves 29 communities in the Greater Hartford region. We are the largest community foundation in the state of Connecticut and one of the oldest and largest community foundations in the entire country. So while we are a regional foundation that has certainly prominence on the national level, we are your community foundation, the community foundation of East Windsor and the community foundation of South Windsor. And as I indicated, one of the things that we want to do is to ensure that as we think about our work for this year and the next several years, that that work is informed by and guided by not only our mission, our guiding principles, and our values, but the relationships and the input from the people who matter the most, our stakeholders, our partners, the communities that we serve. And in doing that, we thought it was important to embark upon a listening tour that was conducted with humility, that was conducted with an openness and a candidness that would allow us to hear directly from you, that was participated in not just, I happen to be standing here as the president of the foundation, but understand that there are 60 plus other individuals who bring time and talent and a great deal of passion and expertise to the organization that ultimately we want to and do deploy throughout the community. So before I get started, just for the other, I see Betsy here and Nancy and Judy Rossi Battle. So all the, and I mentioned Stephanie and Tom and Julie's here, but all the employees of the foundation, just if you would just kind of wave your hand. So these individuals are also here to answer the tough questions, you know, that you might throw at me. I'll take the softballs happily. But it's really, it's been an invigorating experience for all of us. And we've had staff members and board members attend the 28 other sessions, or 27 other sessions that we've had. And it's really, everyone's walked away, no matter how long the day or how tough the week, we come and engage and walk away invigorated and excited and humbled and more learned about the issues facing our communities. So that being the case, this is how this works. It is not working, it doesn't work for me to stand here and give a soliloquy or a monologue because, you know, that's not what we are here to do. We are here to hear from you. We want you to share with us, again, your thoughts about what you love about your town, what brought you here, what keeps you here, what concerns do you have, what things frustrate you as you look at the horizon, whether it's the next year, next 2 years, next decade. What are the areas of concern or interest that you might have, and how can we, as your community foundation, be a partner with a number of other key stakeholders in helping to either achieve those aspirations, mitigate some of those challenges, or put those concerns on the table so they can be discussed, mitigated, and perhaps even overcome. So that's why we're here. And as I've said, in each and every one of these, you know, this is a pretty large group. You know, you seem pretty robust as I came in. There was a lot of chatter and conversation, and that's a good thing. So you can't go quiet now because this is what we're here for. And then to ensure that you don't go quiet, there are two ways to do this. There's the easy way and the hard, difficult, awkward way. The easy way is just really just to start offering your thoughts and your suggestions and your questions. You know, if you'd raise your hand, we have a microphone that'll go around. And although it's a small room, we ask you to wait for the mic so we can capture this for the videographer and the audio recording. That's the easy way. The other difficult, well, not difficult, but awkward way is if you get all quiet and shy and I see you making eye contact with me, I will take that as an assumption that you have something to say. So I'll just start saying, so you'll have to either look away or look down, but at some point you're going to glance at me, I'm going to catch you glancing at me, and I'm going to say, hey, you must have something to offer. So thus far we've had all of these work on the easy way, but I am not above, just starting to call on people who I even think are looking in my direction. But really, it's important that we hear from you, because this is going to continue to inform our work. We'll talk a little bit toward the end about our new strategic plan that we're excited about. That strategic plan was, the framework was built on conversations we've had for the past year, and although we've launched into it, there is still more conversations that we have to have. So we'll be spending the first 4 or 5 months or 6 months of this year really refining the strategic plan, specifically around conversations we're having. So, what you're saying and sharing with us is important. This is not a one-off that we're not going to check a box and say, okay, we got South Windsor and East Windsor and we're done. This will really help inform, and you will see the results and the manifestation of that in our work going forward. And you will also see how it's already began to manifest itself in the results of some of the announcements that we've made that hopefully you have heard of, and if not, it will be great to surprise you. But you probably have heard of some of the things that are directly relevant, but we'll get to that in a few minutes. So I have done my introduction. We've talked about the logistics, so now really let's open this up. And again, just open question. Yeah, right away. I love it. Your hand went up, right? Yeah. Okay, there we go. We're right into this. Thank you.
By the way, Jay, thank you for you participated in the LWL Hartford presentation at Peppercorns.
I did.
We invited you, and thank you very much for participating
over
a year ago, and it was a good crowd, at least as large as this. Thank you for enlightening us all. Peter DeMaliam, I'm a resident of this town, and I think there are few people here better versed at what the South Windsor Community Foundation does and also what Wood Memorial Library and Museum does. And I know there are some people from those organizations, and they're definitely better prepared to address those needs we have here. But also, I think we need to look at, first and foremost, is the needs of the neediest in our community. And I think Human Services is helping out around 400 families during the course of the year. I think the neediest in our community, programming for that is absolutely #1 in my book. We also have some great institutions here who do programming for everyone, such as Wood Memorial Library and Museum. So I'd like to see something oriented toward that and the great programs that South Windsor Community Foundation does. But I also think we need to look at the communities that are near us where we could help, through collaborations, help the neediest in our region. And I'm involved through the Hartford Kiwanis Club and Hartford Kiwanis Fund. Some people in this room have even supported that. But we're trying to reach out, and I chair a group called Suburban Hartford Initiative Program, which is part of Kiwanis Club. And by the way, we're going to be joining you. We're going to be meeting with you shortly. Okay. We need your assistance in investing, among other things. But we do need assistance in how we can get the suburban communities, such as South Windsor, take care of our own here, but also help out the neediest in the region, such as the Northeast neighborhood where 90 to 95% of the children are living in poverty. And it's only 6-7 miles from this room. So how we can collaborate with other organizations. There's Hartford Bags of Love here in town. They've been doing a great job. They just collect a lot of sleeping bags. I saw that on Facebook of late. They helped out giving Christmas gifts for kids in those neighborhoods. But how the foundation can help the suburbs to help not only the neediest in their communities and other programming, great social programming in their communities, but also how you can help us to collaborate with other organizations so we can more effectively address the, for example, a generational cycle of poverty in places like the Northeast neighborhood in Hartford, where kids don't have a chance, and adults in some cases too. And we have great need for educating people to get the work skills, because we need to hire, within the next 10 years, 50,000 people in advanced manufacturing. And we don't have enough people going up through the pipeline to fill that need. So how we can get some people who are not actively participating, they're underemployed, unemployed, into that in our communities, and in particular the neediest challenged communities. I'd like to see that. But I think the Hartford Foundation can function as a conduit to help everyone to collaborate. Organizations here in town, regional organizations, organizations in Hartford, because the way we're spending money right now, we have too many organizations trying to do pretty much the same thing without collaborations. And I think maybe you can be a vehicle for addressing that and making us much more effective. But we have great needs here in the town, great organizations. The neediest in this town, about 400 families, as Matt will tell you, Matt Galligan, our town manager. And then, of course, collaborating to address the greatest needs of most challenged neighborhoods and families throughout the region. Thank you.
It is almost as if you wrote our strategic plan. I really couldn't have set that up better if I would have asked one of the staff members who was at every one of the meetings to sort of be a plant in the audience and open up with a statement like that. You know, you hit the nail right on the head. The core, and I'll get into this now a little bit. I was going to wait till the end, but I mean, it's such a perfect segue that our new strategic plan has us moving in, building on our work in the past, but really moving in a new direction, and not a direction that anyone should be worried about, but we are, as a part of our work for the next 3 years, using an array of conversations with diverse stakeholders across all 29 communities, using data and information to really help us zero in on the neediest in our region. Those individuals and families and components of our communities that have suffered and continue to suffer the greatest and most pressing and persistent disparities. That's exactly where we're going to be focusing our work. Oftentimes, we've also found through the data that oftentimes those disparities are exacerbated or driven by race, place, or income. You talked about communities that are just 6 or 7 miles from here where children at a higher degree, a multiple of 3 or 4 times, are growing up in poverty, whose trajectory in terms of their educational attainment or their propensity to ultimately end up within the juvenile justice or the adult criminal justice system are driven not by anything that they've done up to this point, but simply by their zip code, by their ethnicity, or by their the family income levels. It is unconscionable to think that we as a community or as a community foundation in putting forth our mission of helping to create putting philanthropy into action, that it ultimately creates lasting solutions resulting in vibrant communities, that we can do that and somehow ignore the parts of the community that you just talked about. They have the same aspirations. They have the same hopes and dreams and desires that we all have, that sometimes that we might take for granted. So you are absolutely right. And we think that addressing the most persistent disparities, the individuals and communities that are the most impacted, addressing the basic human needs that are necessary for any of us just to survive, let alone thrive, is exactly what we should be doing. And we believe in doing that. That doesn't come at the expense of providing investment and opportunities for other broader parts of the community. But we can't see ourselves as a community foundation with the resources and the tools that we have and the mission we have, and doing that and somehow ignoring the very glaring disparities and challenges that you talked about. And we've taken that on. It's a new shift. It is outcome focused. We are using information and data really to help us zero in conversations with stakeholders and with residents. So to hear that as sort of the opening statement, I couldn't be more inspired and more excited, and it really validates what we've been hearing and the work that we're doing. And in doing that, understand it's going to take partnerships. In doing that, it's going to take these types of conversations. In doing that, it does mean we're going to have to make difficult decisions. We have a lot of areas that we support. We support each and every one of the 29 communities. We've done that for decades. We will continue to do that. But we also have to recognize that there are segments of the community that have not benefited from this economy that's been growing for the past 6 or 7, 8 years. I mean, since the Great Recession, we've seen economic growth. We've seen an improvement in wages. We've seen a whole host of improvements, but you and I and each of you can probably think of communities or families or neighborhoods not all that far from here that still continue to suffer those disparities. So how we address that, not in a vacuum, it's not going to be fixed overnight, but we couldn't agree with you more, and we appreciate hearing that from our partners and stakeholders, and very much will be doing that as we continue to make investments and grants and engage in other activities that continue to lift up and improve the quality of life across the region. So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Masters, East Windsor. And on November 16th, there was an article in the Hartford Current. It said, Foundation to give local communities $100,000 each.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really going to do something like that? And if you are, who would decide what type of organizations or how it's distributed?
Correct.
Among the community.
Great, boy, you all, this is really, you're making this too easy for me. So, yes, that was one of the things I alluded to, is one of the announcements that we made, that we are making, and this is just, and the board was very adamant that I conveyed that this is just an initial down payment, an initial investment, that each and every one of our 29 communities, we're establishing a fund with an initial investment of $100,000. So it's a $2.9 million commitment when you take all 29 communities. And to answer your question, who's going to make the decision of how to distribute those funds? The communities are. We are going to work with each and every one of those 29 communities to establish. And when I say the communities, I'm a former mayor, and when the mayor part of me, when I hear that, you think, oh, wow, that's great. Well, you know, with no disrespect to our elected officials, our town manager, this isn't a fund that's being established at the political subdivision level, at the political level, or at the elected level. This is a fund that will be for each of these towns, and we will work with the towns, and certainly the town managers and the mayors, but the grassroots leaders and stakeholders. We're going to work with the town, so the town establishes an advisory board made up of citizens and stakeholders of that town that reflects the makeup of the town. So it could be, you know, someone from the arts community or faith-based communities, a neighborhood leader, and ultimately we're going to help build the capacity and do some of the nonprofit training that would be necessary, and the decisions are going to rest with that body. They're not going to rest with the Hartford Foundation. They're not going to rest with me. They're not going to rest with our board of directors. We are going to be empowering participatory grant making at the community level for the towns to ultimately decide how to administer those funds. So the $100,000, $50,000 of that is going to be in an endowment, which will remain in perpetuity. So with the endowment, that will throw off income, and as that grows, the income grows, and that will be within the purview of the committee to decide. And the other $50,000 will be available for immediate use. If the community decides to use it for a big project or a series of small projects, or decides to use it as leverage to attract other investments, it will be completely up to the community. Clearly, I mean, the same parameters that we operate under, that the IRS guidelines provide, what, you know, types of things can be supported, that will be a requirement, but that's not a Hartford Foundation requirement. That's an IRS requirement. But the decision will be at the town level, how to administer those funds. And what it does is we face those, you know, there are always, as you already know, there are always more needs and demands than resources available. Even with the endowment that we have, we face that every day. But yet and still, we do our best to make informed decisions about how to make those grant investments and other investments in a way that really is impactful, that moves the needle. So we are very excited. So yes, we are really doing that. The staff is already putting into motion the internal dynamics around that. You know, this isn't a far-off promise. We are funding that. That will be fully funded this year. I mean, we funded it between last year and this year, so between this year and next year. Right. So the funds will be in place. The initial down payment of the funds will be in place this year, and we'll fully fund it the following year. So stay tuned for more. You know, as we look for volunteers from the communities, we want, again, we want the advisory board to be reflective of the community in terms of age and demographics and a whole host of things. So it's exciting, and it's a lot of work, but we're thrilled about the fact that you're showing me.
There's a card waiting for you outside that has.
Stand up now.
Oh, sorry. So there's a website that you can go to on our website that has a lot more details. So you pick up a card on your way out, and we'll give you the address of the website. You can get more answers to questions And there's also a place there if you are interested in participating in the conversations that are coming up. There's a place where you can sign up, sign your name, let us know that you're interested, and we'll follow up with you with more details.
Thank you. See why it's important to have staff that are smarter than you are, who bail you out when you're sort of trying to. Thank you. We are exceptionally excited about that. Yes, sir. Right here.
Hi, Tim Shepard, South Windsor. I don't know if anybody ran into a little guilt trip when Peter got through talking. I was sitting here saying, God, what a selfish guy I am, thinking about the things that I want. Because South Windsor, we're pretty fortunate. I know there's some people falling through the crack, but South Windsor's really got it covered pretty darn well. Well, everybody's done their share in this room. So I really want to just say, I'm with you, Peter, that's good enough. But then I recovered, and I thought, I thought that, you know, I enjoy land conservation. Andy and a group of us are working on a farm in town, the Priest Farm, and we talk about it being more of a community farm. You put a lot of money into the Hartford 4-H, so you know, you appreciate getting kids involved. So I guess I came back when I realized that some of the things that I like, open space, the Priest Farm, there's nothing wrong with that. I shouldn't feel guilty as long as we share it. And that's the point. You know, going back many years ago, there was a fellow, Ned Cole, and he ran something called the Revitalization Corps in Hartford. And he would bring kids out of Hartford and bring them into factories. They came to our factory in town, and these kids would go through the factory, and maybe 1 out of 100 would say, wow, how do I do that? You know, and that was worth it. So I guess I'm not going to feel guilty. I'm going to say I'm big on land conservation.
Good.
And we're big on the Priest Farm, and we will share it.
Good. That's exactly why we're here to hear.
Inner city, outer city, whatever it might be, because I think those are, you know, open space. Once we're saturated, we're no different than any other place. And I think you need to have these little places to get your head screwed on right. And I want to see a Priest Farm where some kids can go down and muck a stall and see what a goat looks like and what a cow looks like. And
I've got an 8-year-old. I'd love to see him muck a stall, whatever that means.
We have some.
Ethan, we're going out to muck a. You're going out to muck a stall, and you two, right?
You send them over.
Thank you. And again, that is exactly what we want to hear. You know, the aspirations, the things that you love. We've heard about open space and land conservation, and how the communities that desire that see that as an opportunity to not only improve the quality of life in their own communities, but to share. And that's the other issue that was talked about, the taking care of your own, first and foremost, very important, but also understanding that we exist as a region. And the greater Hartford region, you know, needs East Windsor and South Windsor and vice versa. So the notion that we often divide ourselves by the political subdivisions or lines on a map, as opposed to the reality of these are assets that would improve and enhance the quality of life of folks who live in Hartford or East Hartford or West Hartford or you name it, and the willingness and the eagerness to share that beauty and that bounty across the region is something of significant value. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Elizabeth Mejia Castro, South Windsor. So this comment is not just specific, I think, to this particular town, but the greater Hartford region as a whole. I am 30 years old. I have no kids, and there's nothing for me to do here. Nothing. I feel that personally, that unless that gets addressed on a state level, I don't have any grand ideas, but unless that gets addressed, people that are my age are going to continue to leave here because there's nothing here that I want to do. I can't stress that enough. I feel like a lot of the programming here in town is either catered to families or to senior citizens. There's nothing for me. So I just wanted to share that.
And I appreciate that. And while you say you may not have any grand ideas at the moment, you know, grand ideas don't often start off as grand ideas. They start off as small incremental thoughts and people willing to and having the courage to express how they feel and express not only how they feel, but what they're experiencing. So what I would hope that you would at least give thought to is just a few minutes ago when we talked about these community funds that have been established for each and every one of the 29 towns, as we talked about wanting to have community advisory boards that are reflective of the makeup, I would hope that you would perhaps give consideration to offering yourself up as a participant on that community board. Because again, it's a small start. $100,000 isn't you know, a lot of money. It's not gonna solve all the issues in even the smallest of our communities, but it's an initial investment, and it is designed to bring the type of discussion and thought around these very issues. You know, and I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, because when you raised your hand, in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm trying to figure out how old she is. You know, you said 30. You know, I was probably 10 years off, like in the other direction. Okay. So, I'm like, good Lord, 30 years old. But that's an important notion, because if we're going to have a prosperous community, if we want a prosperous community, that people who are retiring say, oh, you know, other than the weather, which, you know, is a whole other phenomenon, you know, but this is a place that we can spend our retirement years. For those that have families or on their professional careers, you know, they find that quality of life. But for those, also for those such as yourself, you know, young, early in your career, you know, have kids, what are the types of things, the activities and the quality of life that's appealing to you and your peers? That also, the best communities, you know, offer something that is appealing to a multiplicity of age groups and demographics. So, you know, again, it doesn't have to be a grand idea. So, and I hope none of you wait till you have that grand, perfect idea. You know, the miracles that we have now, whether it's the iPhone or they didn't start off like this. You know, they started off as much more basic, rudimentary things that ultimately evolved. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for giving consideration to offering your talents and your thoughts as a part of that community advisory group. And not only through that mechanism, but through other conversations. There are other, amongst your peers that we've heard that. We have a group of young people who we are engaging in terms of both philanthropy, but also their thoughts and their ideas. So I would hope that even beyond the Community Advisory Board, that we'd have an opportunity to, you know, have more conversations with you, participating with us as an organization.
I've lived here in Connecticut now for 12 years, and I'm a New York City girl, and I know. I know. But I'm sick and tired, and it's just, like you just said, it's not just me saying this, it's other people my age. We're sick and tired of going to New Haven or having to schlep up to even Springfield. It's like, no, why should we have to? You know, the downtown in Hartford shuts down after 5 o'clock every single day. I don't really want to schlep up to West Hartford either. And it's a different community. I want to be able to be here.
We hear you. And that's the thing. We're not going to be Boston. We're not going to be New York, nor should we try to be. But at the same time, the things that we can offer right here on our own backyard within this region, whether it's downtown Hartford or any of the other communities. So I appreciate that. Yes.
Sandy Bro, and I'm from South Windsor. This is not a small community issue. This is not a state issue. This is a national issue, and that is mental health and emotional health. And I think everything we've already talked about touches on the community's emotional health as well, because you need healthy emotional outlets for activities. And it concerns me that I don't know of any nonprofits in the community that are addressing mental health other than drug addiction, which we do have some wonderful facilities here for that. But I would like, for myself and my community, I would like to see activities that focus on mental well-being in a time, in a climate politically where division leads to rage, leads to very dangerous situations. And so hopefully there's something that will come forward to address emotional health.
I appreciate that. And one of the things that we touched on in terms of when I mentioned our support for in our investments in basic human needs, I classify that as one of those things that is absolutely an essential part of living and surviving, making sure that, as you talked about, drug addiction, alcohol, all those things, there are a number of organizations, our physical health. So to the extent that we have those partnerships and can help bring them to the forefront, to the extent that those partnerships may not be as visible or present in some of our communities, and we can help facilitate that discussion, we absolutely are committed to doing that. So thank you for sharing. Yes, ma'am. Judy, did you want to say something on that? Okay.
Okay. Is this good?
That's good.
Okay, I'm Karen Wagner. I'm the chair of the South Windsor Mass Transit and Highway Advisory Commission. And one of the problems we have in our town is that we are very car dependent. We have very limited bus service in town. So our commission has been trying to think of ways to change that without spending a lot of money. And we were sort of thinking of something along the models of what they do in Enfield, where there's an intra-community bus that connects to mass transit. And we have done a lot of surveys and interviews with businesses and found that there are businesses in town that would like to hire low-income people without cars for their businesses, especially in the nursing homes, but there's no way for those people to even get to the mass transit we have that might connect to the nursing home. So it's an issue for our low-income families. It's also an economic development issue because all of our little business districts are all kind of like in their own little spot and a little too far to walk between, but if there was better transit, that would help to connect them, and also if the transit actually went into the neighborhoods, it would connect the neighborhoods to our main business districts, and it's obviously an environmental issue as well. We've actually seen people on our commission. We've seen people walking a couple of miles to work from the closest bus station. I even interviewed one guy who was the president of his company, and he picked up a guy at work who was on his way to work in the snow, walking upon a road that has no sidewalks, going to the FedEx distribution center because it was 3 miles from the bus stop. And he had this conversation about this while he was driving him to work. So this covers a lot of areas, have this kind of problem, but we don't have any money and we don't know what to do about that. We can't even really do a scientific survey that covers the whole town, but we've done a lot of, targeted surveys of the Chamber of Commerce, things like that, but that's all we're able to do with this. So we're stuck, basically, and we don't know how to get from what we know to where we want to be.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. One of the areas that emerges as a priority area within our new strategic plan is community and economic development. Transportation challenges fit squarely within that. And this isn't the first time that we've heard that. And I can tell you, you're a New York City girl, so you know communities, and when you have that level of size and density, mass transportation is much easier to do. And I just spent the past 6 years in Washington, D.C. and sold my car because of the availability of mass transit and experienced what you talked about here firsthand. Even though I live in a community where, and I have used the CT Fast Track there because we serve 29 communities, the necessity for a car was very present. And I was blessed to be able to have the resources to acquire one. But there are those, as you described, who aren't. I think one area we can help, we would welcome the conversation when you talked about even the ability to do a more scientific study about that issue. We would welcome a conversation about having what resources we might be able to bring to that, because you pointed out this isn't just a South Windsor or an East Windsor issue. This is a regional issue. So, a dozen plus communities that are all facing that, if there's some interest in a collaboration between communities that says, let's at least get a scientific study that documents the issue and perhaps begins to bring, proposals about it. Because the reality is we're not going to build a New York or Boston or Washington, D.C. type metro, in our area. Fast Track is a good start, but there are still, as you described, gaps in that. So while there is no perfect solution that is financially feasible, getting a study that at least documents it and perhaps then begins to put together, again, not one grand idea, but maybe a lot of smaller ideas that ultimately make it better than it is now. There still may be work to do, but something that's better and more pragmatic. So I would encourage you to give us a call and to identify, a group of communities that say, yeah, this is a similar challenge we have, and then we would love to talk about how we might be able to provide the resources that brings in some expertise and a study that would really put us collectively on a path to maybe coming up with a couple of steps that would incrementally improve the situation. Because you're right, it's about the ability to reach gainful employment. It's about the ability to reach those commercial nodes that exist. When you talk about the need to hire for advanced manufacturing, I've heard that time and time again, but it's no good having the jobs and even having people who have the skills if ultimately, they can't get there in a reliable manner. So thank you for bringing that up, and I would hope that we could continue a conversation about how we might bring some resources to that issue. You are just, you guys are just full of thoughts and ideas and aspirations about the community. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Seal Decker, South Windsor. We have recently been thinking about the need for really organizing something that would incorporate all the arts in town.
Oh, the arts?
Arts.
Okay.
We have an art group that provides Sunday concerts and that kind of thing. But what we're thinking about is something that really would incorporate all phases of the arts that would benefit the entire community, whether it be sculpturing or visual arts or literature, theater. I mean, it's a huge thing for a town like South Windsor, but there are so many people in this town that have so many interests in so many of those things that it'd be great to have some sort of an umbrella kind of thing, some group that would be in charge of all of it, kind of coordinating it all for the town, but having all those groups be individuals among themselves, within themselves also. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether that exists anyplace. I've been recently calling towns like Manchester and Windsor and places like that. They have similar things going, but I don't want to have to reinvent the wheel. Right. But I don't know if the foundation has any way of helping us get started in something like that. I don't know if it's too ambitious.
I don't think
I hope it's not.
Right.
It would benefit so many people and so many groups. So I would look to the foundation for some guidance in that. I know the foundation has done a lot in previous things I've been involved in, where I've come to some of your sessions on for philanthropy and that kind of thing. So I know you do have experts in a lot of areas. So I would hope maybe you could help South Windsor with something like that. I think there's enough interest, and we've got a very new, very small group forming now trying to get hold of that and bring it forward.
Well, thank you. We think that the arts, culture, and the arts are an essential part of the quality of life in our region and specifically in our towns. And certainly also, kudos for the thought around collaboration. A lot of very talented individual arts organizations and arts groups, but in a relatively small town, it's still important to be able to coordinate that in a way that is of benefit to, and again, I'm sure this is, you talked about South Windsor, but I would, make I think a safe assumption that, East Windsor would say the same thing, and so some of the surrounding communities. So, Judy, if you just touch, I know, and I'm not saying that this is a solution, but the Greater Hartford Arts Council sort of serves as that function to a certain extent, but that may not have the reach. But I think in terms of even a conversation about how we could collaborate with the arts, consistent with what we're talking about, Judy.
Yes, I think it's on. Thank you. The Greater Hartford Arts Council does do a lot of work, but mostly with existing nonprofit organizations. They do have some small grants that they give out for planning and ignition activities and ideas. So that is an option. The other thing that we do is that we do planning grants. So if there's an activity or something that the community is thinking about and just needs guidance and an ability to have someone come out and guide you and facilitate you in a discussion, that's a consideration that we would also have.
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
I did call the Hartford group, and they told me they do mostly working with funds and funding more than actually working with groups that are creating the arts. Okay. And they said I should call the Connecticut Commission on the Arts. Is there something different?
Connecticut Commission is a state organization. They do have some dollars. Of course, with the new changing administration, we'll have to wait to see what their priorities are going to be as to what they're doing. Right. There also is the Connecticut Humanities Council for some activities that does have small grants. Again, those were all funded in the past by both the state and the Arts Council and are no longer being funded by them. So there's been a lot of cutbacks in the arts in general. So people are kind of struggling to figure out where to go next. But originally, the Arts Council was set up to do that, but I think you're absolutely right. They're doing more fundraising for small to mid-sized arts organizations.
So I think back to the planning, though, that Judy referred to, I think that's where, I would encourage you, call us and have a conversation about, perhaps the planning grants that we might be able to work with you all.
That's great.
As a community.
Great, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thoughts, questions, aspirations? Again, we won't, yeah, we're scheduled to go till 7, but, we'll certainly be sensitive to, right here in front of me.
Yes, I'm Ginny McCrow. I work with the Friends of Wood Memorial Library, which was mentioned earlier. And I would like to offer to the young lady over here that's the age group we're dying to get involved in the programs that we put on. As you say, we have children, we have seniors, and some middle-aged people, but not your age group. And so that's a more direct connection. But
thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that we have seen, I think that's exceptionally exciting, is that in a half dozen or so of these instances, we've had an individual stand up and express thought or an idea or concern, and then, 2 minutes later, someone else is like, oh, wait a minute. There was one woman who was looking for a space for a particular program, and then the next person said, wait a minute, we've got this space that is geared toward just what you've talked about, so let's have a conversation and things like that. So again, just being able to make those direct connections, and part of what we want to offer to our communities is the ability to convene and to connect around a particular topic, in addition to our ability to bring financial resources when we can. There are a whole host of things that we want to be seen as a tool that you can utilize. So, facilitating a conversation, not knowing where it may go, but just the notion of being able to bring people together and hear these things, so we know how to help inform our work, but also that we make ourselves known as an asset and a resource to the entirety of the community. So thank you. One of the things, so we talked about the excitement around our grants, our community funds for each of the 29 communities, and that. We talked about the notion of we're going to spend the next 3 to 4 or 5 months really taking these conversations and figuring out how to put actual strategies together to really begin to address some of those most pressing disparities that really don't allow some of our citizens to thrive and to enjoy the quality of life that is really deserved. That happens through partnerships. I appreciate the fact that we have been blessed with resources to fund, but part of the work we're going to take on more ourselves, but this work absolutely doesn't get done. And as I was perusing the list of participants, I saw so many of our nonprofit partners. I just want to again stress how appreciative we are of that level of expertise and the commitment that those nonprofit partners demonstrate. One thing that hasn't come up here yet, but I wouldn't assume that it's not a challenge, is we've heard time and time, or you actually did sort of reference it, is the fact that we've heard the challenge around volunteerism. That there are, so I see the heads shake. Okay, so it's a hot topic. That you've got a group of folks who offer themselves and are you see them with this hat on, then you see them with that hat on, and there are never enough in terms of all of the things that go on in a community. And one of the things that we said that we would do is we are giving thought around how to convene some sort of symposium or discussion around volunteerism in the region. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but bringing in, trying to discover what are the best practices, whether they're in the state or somewhere else in the country or beyond, about how to inspire, engage, and connect with more volunteers. Is there some technological platform that helps to create a database of volunteers based on geography, based on area of interest, based on area of expertise, that really helps to spread. You know, the old axiom that talks about, you know, many hands make for lighter work. This notion that people want to give and do give of their time and talent, but also are very busy with families and careers and life issues. But to the notion of being able to create some sort of, I'm going to say app, but I'm sure that's oversimplifying it, but some sort of mechanism that people who want to volunteer within a particular geographic area or area of expertise have a place to make that known, and at the same time, organizations that are looking for volunteers have a place to go to in a way that isn't, becomes a burden and people are bombarded with volunteer requests. And so it's an issue that we have heard, and I made a commitment to. I sometimes make these commitments, and then I see my staff either, going like this or put, this, and then I get back to the office, and it's like, okay, so what did he commit to that now we're going to have to figure out how to execute? So that is something that we are excited and that you'll hear more about, but this issue of really the notion of volunteers and how to make that a much more robust experience.
Kind of along with the same frame of the volunteers, I've had a crazy idea because I work in Hartford about having or creating some type of a system for all of the nonprofits to be able to track participant activity and who participates in what job training program, financial literacy, etc. But that should be tied to the volunteers because often a lot of those organizations need help tracking along those two frames of data. So just throwing that out there to not necessarily separate the two.
Right.
And it creates more collaboration between the nonprofits and
so even like with client, not just volunteer, but clients that they're serving or who's been, you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, that has actually risen to the level of discussion with the city and the school district, because there are systems that we're using that were intended to do that, but what was found out, and sometime in one case, in a very tragic incident, there was a young man who was a student who had been was a client of multiple nonprofit organizations, all well-intended, all doing well, but there was no ability to see, and the story was a public story. I think his name was Keon. There was no ability to comprehensively see who was servicing this young man, what services he was receiving. Unfortunately, ultimately, he ended up being killed. And it was only after the fact, that, there was sort of a coming together to realize that there were holes in the system. That Organization A didn't know he was being helped by Organization B, and Organization D didn't know. So, we don't know that a better system would have precluded that, but we know that the system that exists now has too many gaps in it. Rightfully, the concerns of privacy and proprietary information, all those are relevant issues and come up. But you have pointed out an issue that not just among nonprofit organizations, amongst government or quasi-government organizations, how do we have a system that protects and maintains the integrity and privacy that individuals deserve, but at the same time, make sure that we minimize the opportunities to fall through the cracks. Organizations that are providing a service and needing to know, what the needs of those clients are and how other organizations interact. And it's not easy, but it's necessary. And one of the things that we did commit to was to being a part of that in terms of providing some of the resources or some of the leadership or facilitation that would bring that together. So, again, another very relevant issue. And I appreciate you pointing out not to separate that from the volunteers. I mean, that's important, but also in terms of the services that are being provided to folks.
In that regard, I wouldn't forget about the fact that each township also deals with, in their human services,
right,
or even in the assessor's offices.
Okay.
You were dealing with levels of assisting
right,
our taxpayers,
right,
which in some regard then fall into place with the other programs.
Right. Right.
We ourselves check with each other.
Right. Good.
And we hope that nothing falls through the cracks. But I've seen it happen.
But how can we?
And
how can we? Right.
Yeah. So it's difficult.
No, thank you. I had the privilege to serve on Governor Lamont's, one of his transition policy committees, and it was called Shared Services, but it was really about, at the core of it were some of these issues, how can towns and communities collaborate amongst things. And one of the things I said, this is good, but I hope that we don't walk out of Shared Services with the idea that, oh, we should just buy more copy paper together. I mean, that's not even low-hanging fruit. That's just, but how can we, to your point, when it comes, and actually, interesting enough, I'm still relatively new, but the issue of the assessor's office did come up amongst some of those who had been, and how collaboration amongst towns can be enhanced. So hopefully the governor's team, they took all these recommendations, and they asked for recommendations that were pragmatic and could be implemented. So hopefully we will see that, but hearing that from the towns, it helps, I think, to validate, at least in my mind, that is something that if there's a role that we can play around that is certainly something we would be open to.
East Windsor just celebrated their 250th anniversary, and Jessica here actually did a lot of coordination for the South Windsor and East Windsor together, because South Windsor broke off from East Windsor, and so did Ellington. And we are, with Jessica's help.
But they're speaking terms now, right? The Windsors, I'm just right.
We did exhibits together and programs together. There was a great project at the high school where all of the alumni came back.
Right.
The historical societies are getting together. Museums are getting together. So instead of just concentrating on South Windsor, East Windsor, Windsor, I think the economies of scale working together is much better than trying to do it by yourself.
And that's where I'll tell you that we not only encourage but find ways to incentivize that. When it comes to communities that often come and have a discussion with us about funding, communities that come with that sort of collaborative effort, I can tell you, there are sort of there's additional incentive for us to support, to encourage, and to fund communities that collaborate along that. One of the things that has been interesting for me is learning about that. So there was, you just described, South Windsor, East Windsor, and Ellington. I learned about, it was Collinsville and some other, that had a similar, relationship. And there were people at the meeting, and there were still some very pronounced feelings about, what happened when. I was like, I'm new here. I don't want to get in the middle of that. I'm just, but it's been interesting to learn the history. So I'm originally from Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, and actually Connecticut. Ohio was part of the Connecticut Western Reserve, so there was a lot of Connecticut influence in Northeast Ohio, where I'm from. So to come here and learn firsthand about the history of some of the towns and how they ultimately ended up, but also at the same time to be as a part of an organization that can help the town celebrate and embrace that history, but at the same time not get stuck there and understand the value of collaboration and moving forward. So, yeah, it's exciting. Come back up. Yes.
Hi, I just want to address an issue that Peter DeMalley brought up a little while ago about the food products going to North and East Hartford and stuff. I'm Carter Sutherland with Carter Cares Incorporated, and that's exactly what we do. We pick up large mostly corporate donations of food products and stuff and deliver it to the communities from Cheshire all the way up through Springfield. And we just take the large donations and break them down to smaller donations. But when we do it unconditionally. We don't charge anybody for anything. We give them to the different community organizations, whether it's a church or a town food pantry, a shelter, soup kitchen, and that's what we do. And what we've been trying to do over our 10 years of service is teach these other organizations, if they get a surplus of product, to redistribute it to another place that has the need. And we've been fairly successful. The only issue we run into is depending on where they get their food from.
Right.
Because if you're not a food partner with one of these big food distribution organizations like Food Share or Connecticut Food Bank.
Right.
If you're not a food partner, you can't share it with a non-food partner.
Okay.
And that becomes an issue because what do they do with it? They throw it away.
Right.
And I'm trying to teach them that they don't need to throw it away. There's another place, even if it's a half a mile down the road, that has the need for the product. And for this young lady here that was thinking about there's nothing to do in town, you've got ideas. You've got great ideas. They start out small. Start working on that small. You don't take on the whole world. You just take a little piece of it and work it out. Do your volunteering. You get into the community is the best place in order to do something. You'll find a lot of friends. My wife spent 20 years in town before I got together with her. My first 6 months with her, I knew more people in town than she did after 20 years. So you need to take the steps to get involved for yourself. I've been in town for 16 years, and the corporation that I created, we are expanded to 2 trucks, and we're running straight out 7 days a week. Wow. 100% volunteer. Nobody receives a wage. And we're struggling financially, but Hartford Foundation did a great job with their Building on Success program and helped us learn a lot over the 2 years that we were in it. And I suggest that any of these nonprofits that are interested to actually look at that, because it's a way to help teach you how to run your organization and what you need to do to make your organization work better. And it gets you out into the community to get recognized a little bit more. And you need to get out there in order to be able to get any funding.
Well, thank you for the work you're doing, you and your wife, and thank you for sharing that, raising awareness amongst the community. Very much. Yes.
I just wanted to pick up on Carter Cares. He mentioned the Building on Success program, and I'd like to just let people know we do have what we call a small agencies project, where we have a couple different mini projects within, but we're really looking at organizations that have either all volunteer or budgets under $200,000 that we work with. So you don't have to be the large organizations, the traditional nonprofits, but we do have a program that will serve people, those nonprofits in the community. So I just wanted to make mention. So thanks for mentioning it.
Thanks, Judy.
Just as a point of inspiration, I wanted to just share the gentleman behind me who talked about the Hartford Bags of Love was actually initiated by a 9-year-old boy.
Wow.
And he lives here in town, but he and his family on Christmas Day went into Hartford to Bushnell Park. And he had a conversation with a gentleman who shared his life story, which in turn just broke his heart. This little boy went to his parents and said, I have to do something. And out of that, with much success, the Hartford Bags of Love was born. Now, granted, his dad is a great networker, and he belongs to the JCs, and he's very involved in the South Windsor community in many ways. But this whole concept came out of this little 9-year-old boy, who is now 10. So right. It's been, or 11. He's 11 now. Okay, sorry, he's 11. And so just a point of inspiration.
Yeah, no,
age is irrelevant.
A granddad grew into a grand idea. Thank you. Yes.
Although I probably don't need it. Jan Snyder from South Windsor. And I was very interested to hear you mention volunteerism. And several years ago, I had spoken to I'm involved in a lot of different community groups over the past 25 years. My oldest is 32, my youngest is 28. So been through the whole PTO and all these other types of things. But I've continue to stay very active in town with volunteering. And I find that one of the biggest things that falls through the cracks are volunteers. For many, many years, if we're trying to do a fundraiser, when you pick up the phone and call somebody that you know and say, could you volunteer 2 hours on such and such a day for, people are like, absolutely. But I think we really don't have a tremendous resource for people who are sitting home saying, geez, what can I do?
Right.
and for there to be an application or a website or something where people can go to say, I want to volunteer in my town, and I'm interested in working with children, or I'm interested in feeding the hungry, or whatever that case may be. So several years ago, I'd spoken to a couple of community that I'm involved with a foundation here in town, and so we should have a database. And at that time, it was a South Windsor database where people can put in how many hours they would want to spend annually and what they do. For instance, my neighbor works on small engines, and he's retired. He's like, geez, I love doing that. And you know, and people around the neighborhood, if they have something broken, he'll take it and fix it. And but he said, I would be gladly volunteer maybe 20, 25 hours a year. Somebody has a lawnmower or any kind of a small engine that needs to be repaired. I'd be more than happy to do it and volunteer. So I thought about possibly, this was years ago, thinking about doing a database and reaching out to citizens to say, what would you like to do, and how much can you volunteer, and things like that. But it's just a daunting task. So I started trying to put something together, and I actually scared myself. And I said, oh my goodness, how am I going to get this done? So I would really look forward to some kind of a volunteerism, as you mentioned, you know, very high level, an app or a web database where people can go in and say, I want to volunteer in East Windsor. This is what I do. Anybody need this? And then anybody can go on from the comfort of your own home or your mobile device to say, geez, I need help this weekend. You know, I'm an elderly couple. I have to move something from one room to another. Can somebody come and help me? And I just think that's the kind of, I think you have to reach out and grab volunteers. And then once people volunteer, and I found that for myself, it's such a rewarding experience. You can't explain it to anybody.
Right.
You can't try to describe it. You just have to do it to feel it.
Right.
And so I would be very interested in some kind of a volunteer reach out for communities. Thank you.
That's what we are working toward, and I would hope that you would give your name and contact number to our staff, because again, we've heard it. We don't quite know what it looks like. You know, maybe it starts off as some sort of convening or gathering, but at the end of the day, some tool that walks away with. You know, and I'm going to predict it's probably going to be some 11-year-old that comes up with the app. You know, we're all going to be banging our heads. We're going to bring experts and be like, oh, this is great. What do you do now? And some 11-year-old is going to take like 15 minutes on his iPhone or her iPhone and be like, all right, here's the app. And we're all going to, you know, but you're absolutely right. We're both a volunteer. When you're ready, you can just put yourself in, you know, what's my expertise, what I'm willing to do, and people who need that. And it's a way to make it so people, you know, who want to do it don't feel high pressure, but a way to connect people. You know, and it becomes sort of the Greater Hartford Volunteer Database, or whatever the case is. So absolutely right.
The 11-year-old exists. It's called volunteermatch.org, and it's a site you can go to if you have an opportunity and you need volunteers. I work with VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. You can post your opportunity for volunteers. If you want to volunteer, you can scroll through and say, oh, I want to volunteer with dogs in Manchester from 2 to 4 in the afternoon.
Right.
So it's there. That
Right.
tool does exist, and you know, if you're interested, it's volunteermatch.org.
See,
I'm not making any money on that.
There's no app for the site, but it is implemented across many
Right.
cities in the country. It's just a question of implementing it.
Here, and then we got to get an app. It's got to be an app. I mean, so nowadays, yeah, I know what I'm saying. So that's the thing. It's like a great tool, but now making us more aware of it, because I mean, who amongst us, as the old saying, there's an app for that. So at this point there isn't. So now there'll be some other 9-year-old who says that's a great idea, but you got to have an app. So we've got a few more minutes, a couple more, maybe one or two more questions or observations. Yeah. So Nancy's giving me the old sort of let's go here. One more, if there are. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a comment, just one comment, that if you are friends of the governor, I think generally speaking, a good business climate takes care of a lot of problems.
Right.
Not that business is the solution, but generally a better business climate would be good. The other thing is, are you going to do, or would you consider doing some sort of a synopsis of your 29 towns, whether it's a video that maybe could come back and get on our public channel? I think it'd be nice to hear what other towns are saying.
Absolutely.
More than say in print, where you can't get the emotion, you can't
Right.
get the feeling.
Right.
I don't know if you can splice together something. I think,
well, listen, you know, we have a video that shows 23 of those 29 towns, but I think I'll put Tom on the spot here in terms of once we finish it, to be able to sort of maybe add to the towns that weren't in the initial video and just give an overall kind of, is that doable?
Yeah, I mean, how much do you want to see? We made a 5-minute video for an event, but I have a 30-minute draft of it that I started with.
But I think so.
I wouldn't mind spending the same amount of time. Excuse me. I wouldn't mind spending the same amount of time if it was 2 hours is tonight. I wouldn't mind a 2-hour video that said it gave us the feeling of what the other towns were thinking, what their problems were, and where
we'll
the
put
common
something
aspects.
together that's engaging, that sort of gives a good flavor of what's happened across, you know, and they've done a good job. They've added graphics and a little music. Make it so you're not just sitting through 2 hours of people, but the highlights, I think, to really show the connectivity between that. So I think that's, Tom and his wife, are expecting. Yeah, so when he comes back from paternity leave, that'll be we'll make sure that assignment's waiting for him. But we're trying to be a modern organization. I mean,
Did you see the same type of topics come up?
We did.
In the 29 towns?
We did. We saw volunteerism and transportation and how, we saw, this was the beauty. We saw some topics that were a common thread through all 29 of the or 28 of the discussions, and then we also saw things that were unique to each and every one of those communities. That was the beauty of that. That we saw both towns express their love for their respective communities, but each of those towns also expressed an appreciation for being a part of the region and concern for the entirety of the region. So we did see that, and I think that's part of what's, even in the 5-minute video, we have some similarities. So we will do that. So, Nancy?
One more thing. If you go to our website, thank you. If you go to our website and you look for Greater Together Community listening tour, you can see a summary of every single town that we've been to. It's about, a 1-page worth of summary, and you'll be also be able to see Constanza's beautiful doodles that she's done for every single town. So if you go to our website, you can see every single synopsis of every single town, and the video that Tom talked about is also posted, but we'll make sure you see that as well.
And then we'll add those to the communities that weren't in the initial video, because we did that in November, and so the remaining 6. So you'll get Constanza, you'll get a 1-page, you will have video up. So thank you all for the time that you have shared with us. Again, we don't take for granted, and this is not an exercise for us to pat ourselves on the back and say we've done 2 more towns. This is part of an ongoing conversation that really is going to help inform and shape our work, and you all know best. We are here as a community foundation to serve. Been doing it we're in our 94th year, and looking eagerly to the 100th centennial event. But in the interim, we're excited about the opportunities. We are aware of the challenges, and truly believe that at the end of the day, we are greater together in facing both of those things. So thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening.